Now here's one that will grab your attention. 50 years after his grandfather's famous mission, Jaques Cousteau will today begin a month living and working underwater, 31 days. Along with a 5-person team of aquanauts, he'll study the impact of climate change and pollutants on the sea. His grandfather, Jaques Cousteau, is credited with creating the first ocean floor habitat for humans. So, what will it be like? Let's talk to scientist Dr Emily Grossman, who's here. Good to see you.
Hello.
This is going to be actually quite a difficult 31 days, isn't it, living under these sort of conditions? Because it's not just the depth, it's the pressure as well.
Absolutely. There's 6 of them, Fabian and his team, and they're going to be living in this underwater environment that's about the size of a bus for 31 days without coming to the surface. So, of course, there's real cramped confinement, but also the fact that they're going to be under 2.5 times atmospheric pressure. So they're going to be living like that. They're going to be diving out every day and then coming back in and staying underwater and not surfacing till day 31, hopefully.
So talk us through why it's important to stay at that pressure. Is that because of the bends issue that you get?
Absolutely. It's called saturation diving. So the bends comes about because when you dive down, little bubbles of gas get dissolved into your bloodstream. And then when you go back up, you have to go very, very slowly so that they come out of solution gently and don't muck up things in your body. The idea is if you stay underwater for a long period of time, the bubbles of gas stay in your bloodstream so you don't have to decompress for as long. And then once you've been down for a certain amount of time, you can actually stay for longer and longer without having to increase the amount of time that you have to, the time that it takes to come back up to decompress.
Right.
But it's never been done for this long. They usually do a couple of weeks. I think at the Aquarius base where they're going at the moment, the record is about 18 days at this depth, which is about 19-20 metres. So they're going to try to do it for 31 days.
So what can they actually achieve? What are the key points of this experiment going to be?
Well, firstly, to look at the physiological and psychological effects of living for that long under that pressure in that cramped confinement. But more importantly is to look at the ocean life, and specifically they're going to be looking at corals and sponges and looking to see the effect of ocean pollution and ocean warming on those species. And those are particularly sensitive to any changes in their environment. And of course we're looking at a virgin environment that isn't directly affected by any human activity, but the effects of pollution and climate change are therefore really emphasised down there. And because of the interdependence of all living species, then any effects that are down there are going to be massively, potentially transmitted through all species. You know, like chaos theory, a butterfly flaps its wings in England and there might be a hurricane in Japan. So looking at tiny changes down there and also fish life and the numbers of fish could potentially show us what's going on a larger scale on our planet and what we're doing to it.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because this is, I mean, a sort of a litmus test, if you like, on our doorstep. I mean, it's a hazardous environment, but you sort of think we may have looked at this previously.
It's amazing. I mean, 70% of our planet is composed of ocean, and there's so little known about it. We spend all this money going to Mars and we can get shuttles out all over space, but there's so little known about our ocean floor. It's sort of the last uncharted territory. And just going, 19-20 metres below the surface, there's so little known. And that's the measurements they're going to be taking. And it could open the doors to loads more research in other parts of the ocean and finding out about new energy resources or new fuels or new fish, which could be potential sources of food in our coming kind of crisis.
I mean, a final thought, because you mentioned space, presumably you talked about the, living in the environment, the pressure, those sort of conditions. Presumably, actually, that is going to be quite useful for transferring to long-term space missions as well.
Yeah, it's a similar type of environment in terms of the crampedness, but of course it's the opposite environment in terms of pressure, because in space you've got zero gravity, whereas under here you've got high pressure. So it'd be quite interesting to look at the physiological effects and see whether the sorts of things that go wrong, or not go wrong, but can affect astronauts could actually be opposite and perhaps have a more beneficial effect on these so-called aquanauts living under high pressure.
I can tell you're excited by it.
Yeah, I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to go and visit.
There is this talk of celebrity visits down there, isn't there? Who's going to be going?
Well, they were supposed to launch it last year, and they said at that point that Richard Branson was supposed to go down, and potentially will.i.am as well. So I thought if he drops out,
Yeah, and in terms of some of the other key points in this. I've heard about underwater motorcycles and underwater Skype.
Yeah, exactly. They're rumoured to have these underwater motorcycles that are like little hovercraft that go sort of hover just above the ocean floor, because the team are going to be diving for 6 to 9 hours every day, which is something they can't do if they have to go up to the surface and down again. You can only do an hour. And they're going to be doing these ocean walks on these underwater motorcycles, which sounds amazing. And as you say as well, they're going to be potentially linking up with schools to do Skype lessons and have Skype calls for free Skype calls for students to call in with their teachers. Brilliant. And have an understanding of what's going on down there.
Love it. I absolutely love it. It's fantastic. Emily, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.